thin air. One really needs to be in some kind of discipline. For me, it was psychotherapy, being in depth psychotherapy, as well as some wonderful supervision that I received from James Bugental and his wife, my early training. But it can be a meditative sort of discipline. It can be working with some kind of a present and mindful mentor. I'm sure there are many routes. Some people maybe get it from great reading or literature, but it begins with the self. One being able to, again, experience the fuller ranges of one's own being and be able to offer that in the therapeutic arena. Not only as a model to the other, but also as a way of attuning, being able to come from many levels of one's personality to attune to what's supposed to lie here and now. And how best to reach this person, how best to engage. And this brings up the whole integrative question, existential integrative therapy. I came around to that more and more because I feel like we live on many existential levels. And we have a variety of desires and capacities for therapeutic change. So not everybody wants or is capable of the kind of deeper exploration that I did or others have done in depth existential therapy. On the other hand, I wouldn't want to cut them off from the possibility that they may be able to go to those deeper places as the work goes on. So existential integrative approach is one way of coordinating and understanding a variety of therapeutic modes within an overarching existential or experiential context.
with the main goal to reach a depth psychotherapy level.
The main goal to be available to that deeper experiential level of contact between you and the person and within the person.
Does it happen always?
No, not at all. I mean, and that's one of the values of this approach, is that one can work with a variety of people. Some people just need to get through the night, let's say, and they need support. They perhaps need some advice. They need a little hand-holding.
Maybe an advice, what you said.
Yes. Possibly advice, possibly referral for medication, even if they're willing to discuss this. I mean, I really attempt to discuss something like that with someone, but I'm not across the board against medication. I think it can be helpful in some cases. And other forms of physiological care, nutrition, yoga, breathing exercise.
Because my next question would be, who do you think is not suitable for existential psychotherapy? But in a way you are answering now, that with the integrative model, it can suit more people.
Yes, exactly, more people. I wouldn't say it's right for everyone, because there's certainly a slant toward being oriented to this existential depth perspective as a practitioner, and of offering that dimension as appropriate in the sessions. And of course, there's a whole workshop around what that means.
Yeah.
But it's certainly, I believe it's appropriate for a much wider range of people and ethnicities and people from different educational backgrounds than is usually perceived in the field.
Mm-hmm. I saw you working 2 years ago with Chinese people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the demo on stage was amazing. Your connection with this student that was a volunteer was very important. It was at a deeper, humane level.
Yes. Well, here is where we get to our common human connection. You know, that undercuts our skin, our language. I'm not saying these things aren't important. They are a part of the depth of who we are, of course. But we all have this flesh and blood, and we're all floating on this speck through eons of space and time, and challenged by these vast questions. And so when we're meeting in those spaces of presence, I believe there is a genuine meeting that happens across culture, across background. It can happen.
Do your therapies with people last for a long time? Usually, I know each person is different, each client is different, but do your clients stay long with you, or you would prefer more shorter term psychotherapy?
You know, I generally work with people for 3 to 5 years, and sometimes longer. So I'm one of those dinosaurs that I hope continues as a species, because I believe so strongly in that deeper kind of connection and the kind of richness that can come out of that.
And transformation.
Transformation. On the other hand, I do have concerns about just wallowing in, pain or conflict without challenging the person to periodically look at how is the relationship going, what is the meaning of this work for them, is it necessary, is it helpful, is it essential to their lives? Because it's an important question as to whether somebody is translating what happens in the depth work to their lives. If that's not happening, I think there's good reasons to question it. Take another look. Are they becoming overly dependent on just that relationship?
And there's another issue. Me coming from Greece, a country in crisis, financial crisis, economic crisis, people cannot pay. So this is another question that many people need psychotherapy for longer periods, but it's unaffordable.
That's absolutely true, and it's true here as well. And actually, I'm not philosophically against shorter-term work. I mean, I think that it can be very helpful, and I've actually experienced that. I've sometimes worked with people over a 6 or 8 week period. And in this video that I did for the APA, this case, this client that I worked with, we only had 6 sessions. And it seemed that some very powerful work went on, very existential work, experiential work went on. So that raises some interesting questions about how it can be brought into the shorter term formats. I haven't quite settled in on my feeling about that. I'm very mixed, because I do think it can be very potent within a short-term encounter, and people like R.D. Laing have shown this as well. On the other hand, generally speaking, I think that whatever is opened up from that point can be supported and deepened and solidified through a longer-term format in many cases. But my basic belief is that for many people, fundamental healing does not occur until they can actually embody parts of themselves that they've cut off in their lives. And that is not an easy thing to do. It usually goes way beyond just talking about change, or telling oneself something different about how to change.
Exactly.
Or just conditioning.
Talking about different things, difficult things, one question. How do you combine so much writing, because you're a very prolific writer? Am I using the right word?
Yes,
You're working many things, and your work in the professional community is so welcome. Where do you find the time? When do you write? Because now we are getting closer to your new book on polarization. But first, let's say, how do you tell us a little bit of when do you write? When do you have time?
Anytime
because you have
I
a
can.
family, you have a wonderful family, a wonderful wife.
Yes.
When do you write?
Well, I've been very fortunate in that way with a wonderful family. Been blessed with that. And they've put up with my crazy writing schedule because...
I heard something about it. This
Yes,
is why.
what did you hear?
But you write anytime. So
yes,
I would like you to share with us.
Well,
when do you write? So maybe you inspire us a little bit.
okay.
Just to write a
I
little
mean,
bit.
first of all,
Yes.
I live the life of a writer
Yes.
because I have about, I don't know, 15 or 16 journals filled with notes and observations about life since I was in high school.
Oh, journal.
Journaling. So I've been doing that for many, many years, and I still do it, and I keep it by my bed or table in my office. And so whenever I have an inspiration, or even just a reflection or a dream that strikes me, I go right to it and just write it down, stream of
And
consciousness.
handwritten, not in the
Handwritten,
computer.
oh yeah, I insist on handwritten. Enough with the computer.
Yeah.
Some things have to be raw from the gut, the spirit. And I find that tremendously helpful, and it's been tremendously informative of later books, articles. That's where I begin often. And if I don't have my journal with me, I'll write on a sheet of paper. So people know that I have these pieces of paper
everywhere
all around, yes.
Yes.
So that's the life of writing, and I live and breathe it. And I believe that's how you do become a good writer, often. You immerse yourself in it. And I think it's part of a reflection of seeing the world in a certain way, attempting to open up to the more of what's going on, and the many levels of what's going on. So as far as the practical schedule, I know my great mentor, Rollo May, used to have a very strict schedule. He'd write early in the morning and then have his little nap and nip of brandy, and he'd write little in the afternoon for a couple hours. Yes, but
very methodical.
Very methodical, and there are many writers who believe in that. I just never could do that. It didn't work for me. I usually don't have brandy, but I write more when the spirit moves me, and what I got used to doing when my son was younger, earlier in my career, was to write when my son and wife were asleep.
So the house was quiet.
Yeah. No noise, no distraction. I mean, they're wonderful, and I love a lot of that distraction. But that's another thing that can help, is to have large amounts of time undistracted. Again, to center myself, to be more present. I find I need a great deal of presence to think through the ideas that I'm working on in books and articles. And so that time late at night, and then when I'm in my office in between seeing clients, and I build in some time. Now I have a whole day during the week where I'm at my home office. I often end up diverted to other things, but I do take some time for writing and as well.
And now let's come to your latest book,
Yes.
The Polarized Mind.
Yes.
A book that is quite provocative, and it seems to me that Kirk Schneider has opened up to new regions in his life. Am I right?
You are right.
What triggered you to write about the polarized mind?
Well, it's something that has been brewing in me since my first book, The Paradoxical Self. And in a way, the polarized mind is the sociological version of the paradoxical self, because the seeds of my study in a polarized mind are in the paradoxical self. Paradoxical self is much more about a kind of existential understanding of the personality and of individual suffering as well as transformation. But the polarized mind moves from that perspective to social suffering and healing. And as I say, it's something that's been percolating for a long time, partly because I believe that we have so many riches within this field of existential depth, humanistic psychology, to apply to the larger world. And I've been very frustrated by how I see us as sort of cloistered, like a nunnery, away from the world too much, in our ivory towers, talking among each other, singing to the choir. And why not tap into these wonderful ideas that we have about transformation and apply them to our desperate situation in the world? And I do think it's very desperate, and that's another reason why I wrote the book, is because I think we're on the brink of potential mass destruction, if not threatening our entire humanity. And I don't see enough coming from psychology or depth psychology addressing that. And I also feel, as a clinician, as a depth psychologist, that we have been sort of shunted aside in the conversation about